The Chargers suffered a tough loss to the Lions on Sunday, but one of the best things that came out of that loss was that Justin Herbert is fully back to being the elite quarterback that we knew he was.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Today, Daniel, it is buy or sell, so we got to get into the biggest storylines and overreactions for the Chargers, and I think the best one for me is Justin Herbert is definitely back. After a little bit of a slow start, I think he showed everybody why he is an elite quarterback, all of the qualities that he brings to the table when he is at his best. And then we talk about Keenan Allen in year 11, firmly as a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And I think it's time that we have the conversation for Daiyan Henley to get introduced into the linebacker lineup.
Yeah, a ton of good conversations today to get into, starting with Justin Herbert, because obviously that's the most important part of this team. But today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. David, I love doing buy or sell. Let's just get into some of the things that might get left out during a post-game show or something along those lines. But it's been hard for me to get over a lot of the bad things from Sunday with the Lions, and there's a ton of things that obviously are super concerning going forward. But the most positive outcome from that game, the most positive thing that came from that game, was definitely Justin Herbert's performance. Because I think when he did it against the Bears, you were like, okay, it's starting to get close to what we know he is. And then you have the Jets game against the best pass defense in the league, right? And then obviously still with the finger bothering him. Now, it felt like we saw more of what we have come to expect from Justin Herbert, which is obviously an incredibly high bar that he has put on himself because of his production over his first 2 years. So the buy or sell is this, David. Justin Herbert is back.
I am so happy to be able to say after this latest performance against a legitimate opponent that Justin Herbert is absolutely back. I mean, and I mentioned a little bit of a slow start. I mean, 6 for 11, 43 yards, and that interception in the first 4 offensive possessions of the game. But after that, he was absolutely money. I mean, he was 21 of 29 for 271 yards and 4 touchdown passes. That came from Eric Smith of the Chargers, and especially good in the second half, Daniel. I mean, when his best was required, I mean, he absolutely delivered. 13 of 16, 144 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 143.8 passer rating, and he was credited with 5 big-time throws. Big-time throws are a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and into a tighter window. Justin Herbert showed you all of the qualities that a top quarterback has: the ability to evade the rush, the ability to throw on the run, to be able to throw with touch, to be able to throw with accuracy, and to be able to unload that cannon when necessary. And Justin Herbert did all of that against the Lions on Sunday.
And we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but it's hard not to correlate that just with the finger being healthier, right? Yeah. I mean, I think the other biggest thing was just the pass protection held up much better on Sunday, as it did in the Chicago Bears game against a lesser pass rush in that game, right? But this one, you had the legitimate pass rush you were going up against. You had a legitimate passing defense you were going up against, and the Chargers, torched them anyways. But I don't know if we talked about enough. Chris Ream from ESPN putting out that article a couple of weeks ago about J.C. Jackson, where in it said that Justin Herbert's finger, when he broke it in that game against the Raiders, the bone actually punctured the skin.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane, right? And he didn't miss a snap. That was the other insane part.
He's like, oh, this is pretty cool. He actually said that too.
Yeah, which is insane to think about. I mean, just, how tough this dude is. I mean, I'd probably pass out if I saw my bone come through my finger. But I think the other most impressive thing is, like, he did it in this game without Gerald Everett, for most of this game. Like, tight end 1, your wide receiver 2, Mike Williams, your wide receiver 3, Joshua Palmer. it still wasn't enough to hold him back in this one and stop him from torching that defense. Yeah, and the big time throws, obviously a pretty subjective stat, but the most he had in a game this season before that was 3. So seeing him, watching the film and actually seeing the throws and the quality of the throws that he made in this one, I think really backs that up because it was insane what he did. The 4th best performance per EPA this season. Of course, the 3rd belongs to the Lions in that game, which is obviously tough. And I think the biggest thing to me, David, is like, okay, if the offensive line can't do what they did on Sunday, do we see it kind of revert back to him not being as great, right? Or is it, okay, we've actually seen him turn the corner, so maybe he struggles a little bit more if the pass rush is all over him, but you're still going to see a lot more of what we saw on Sunday.
I mean, Justin Herbert is so dynamic at being able to evade the rush, Daniel, that he covers up a lot of the deficiencies that the offensive line presents. But I think the proof is in the pudding. When he gets solid protection, he is able to dice up pretty much any defense that he goes up against. So the Chargers absolutely need to continue on that trend of, at least on the offensive line, being able to provide Justin Herbert with a little bit of time. A little bit of time with him goes a long way. He showed that against the Lions.
He did, and I mean, I don't think you can expect that every game. I mean, there's going to be more games. Like, I buy or sell the Chargers' offensive line is fixed. I would sell that, right? Like, not enough after one performance. But the most passing touchdowns he's had this season, and I thought in a single game, obviously, but I thought the biggest thing was just elevating the weapons around him, right? Took Keenan Allen's game to the next level, found a way to use Quentin Johnston, found a way to get Jalen Guyton involved, found a way to really put this team on his back when they needed him to in a shootout game. And I thought that was the Justin Herbert that we all know and knew, it was kind of just a matter of time. Like, it was kind of like last year when he finally got healthy after the broken rib cartilage, right? Where it's like, okay, there was a moment in the season where it changed and you could tell he was obviously more healthy and more comfortable. I thought that's kind of what we saw on Sunday, that kind of breakout performance. But let's get to the next buy or sell here, Dave, because another big thing going into that game was playing well in the second half offensively. Unfortunately, the Chargers did everything they could in the second half offensively, and it still wasn't enough. But this is the buy or sell here today, David. After that performance, the Chargers have fixed their second half offense.
Yeah, I mean, as encouraged as I was with their performance against the Lions, I think it's just not quite enough for me yet, so I'm going to sell it for now. The Chargers did lead, touchdown drives on their final 6 possessions, which, is spectacular, and
final 5,
a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that came, in the second half. But, versus the Bears, only a couple of games ago, they only scored 6 points, a pair of field goals. They did do, pretty well, against the Jets, scoring 10 points, although a lot of that was because of short fields.
I mean, one of those, the touchdown drive started on the 2-yard line.
Right.
So hard to find much talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, 21 points against the Lions. I mean, that's definitely very, very encouraging. But I think I need to see it another week before I'm ready to buy in completely on the second half offense. I love that performance, and hopefully this is the performance that jump starts that into, the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I don't think you're ever expecting perfection from this offense, right? But to be as kind of discombobulated as we've seen them in the second half, and to see that performance, 3 drives, 3 touchdowns, right? It doesn't get anything better than that. Like, it can't get better than that. 10 plays, 92 yards. That was probably the most impressive one. 16 plays, 75 yards. 7 plays, 68 yards. They ended every single drive with a touchdown. They had to go for it pretty much, right? And they were chasing, which led to that. I mean, a lot of 4-down territory drives kind of in there mixed in, but like, I'm buying it as much as you can buy one game, right? Like, they were perfect. Like, there was nothing
it was beautiful to watch
from them. Obviously, the Lions also led multiple touchdown drives in the game-winning field goal drive, so they didn't get as many opportunities as you'd like. I mean, they only got 3 drives. Justin Herbert only touched the ball 3 times in the second half as far as drives he had. So
it's a shame.
They did everything they could. And I feel like the nice thing about that game was, like, you legitimately felt like, even when it hasn't felt like this at times this season, if Justin Herbert got the ball back in that game, he was going to go win it. Like, that's
I
just what it
100%
felt.
believe that.
And even when it, like, didn't feel like that, and there was games where that wasn't the case early in the season, it felt like this version of Justin Herbert was going to take them down to get that win if they were able to get that final stop on that last drive.
Oh, yeah, he was in God mode. There was no way they were stopping him.
Yeah, and I mean, now it's just stacking the successes, right? Do it again this weekend. Do it again in another must-win game coming up against the Packers, because the AFC West, or AFC in general, is an absolute bloodbath, and they need
it is.
Every single game. The margin for error is non-existent right now. But I do want to talk about why this Chargers offense did as good as they did, and it starts with Keenan Allen, who is bona fide a top 5 receiver in 2023. First, I do need to talk to you guys about something a little bit more personal. We spend a lot of time talking together, and we get fired up together on wins and losses, and we console each other after the ones like we had on Sunday against the Lions. But I'm thankful for the connection that we have, and I truly do think Chargers fans kind of all come together. And I want our chat to be a little personal today because whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend, because our partners at Jace Medical, they have life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications that can be ordered in a 1-year supply, even ED generics like Cialis, Viagra, and Revatio prescriptions. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive our 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember, that's promo code LOCKEDON at checkout so you can get that discount. This is a great thing from a customer who said, I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut my pills in half to have them. I ordered most of the daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. So if you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any of their daily medication, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. David, let's continue this buy or sell here by talking about someone that is always fun to talk about, especially in year 11, and that is Keenan Allen. And, you know, the last couple of weeks on buy or sell, we've kind of bounced around the idea of Keenan Allen as a top 10 receiver, right? Because that is truly a testament, especially with all the young, talented wide receivers in the NFL right now. I mean, so many you could choose from. But today we had to bump it up a little bit because I think there's a legitimate case for the one we're going to talk about right now. And the buy or sell is this. Keenan Allen right now is a top 5 NFL receiver.
Sorry, haters, but it's true. It's damn true. I am buying it. The numbers back it up. Keenan Allen has been fantastic this year. I mean, 895 receiving yards already, which is insane. He has been spectacular. He's 4th in receiving yards, tied for 4th in touchdowns, number 1 in receptions, 5th in first downs. Oh, and by the way, he is the only wide receiver in the NFL with a passing touchdown.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I mean, 49-yard touchdown is not something a lot of these guys have on their resume. I think he is 5th now. I think that Stephon Diggs passed him tonight.
Actually, no. Stephon Diggs only had 39 yards.
7 touchdowns is what I'm talking about. Not in the receiving yards. But yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at this, the Chargers put out a post basically just saying, like, you know, is he not top 5? He's pretty much top 5 in every major category. 5th in receiving touchdowns, like you said, 6th in first downs, tied for 3rd with Tyreek Hill for most 20-plus yard catches. That might be the most surprising one, right?
That's the most exciting part, I think.
3rd in most, explosive pass catches this season, and we're talking about 31-year-old Keenan Allen who ran like a 4.7
in all of the NFL, by the way.
You don't have to be fast to make big plays, right? Like, you might have to be fast to catch go routes for touchdowns and things like that, but as far as 20-plus yard catches go, there's been 2 other guys that have been better than Keenan Allen so far this season, and I think if you're talking about long-term, and I mean, I'm buying this for this year, easily top 5 receiver, like, long-term, you want Tyreek Hill, right? Or, Jamar Chase, who he has been better than in every single category this year.
Sure.
A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, of course, right? But, like, even C.D. Lamb, you can probably throw that in there if you're just talking about what they're going to do in the future. But right now, I mean, there's been 2 guys you could obviously say are better than him. A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill. Yeah. That's it. Every other guy he leads in one category, mostly 2 or 3 categories, right? Him and Stephon Diggs have been almost identical this year with their yards, catches. I mean, they have the exact same amount of catches. The yards, are close.
I mean, similar type of receivers, too. I mean, just with their ability to get open and run routes and their releases, their hands. I mean, very similar in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you can make the argument for C.D. Lamb for sure. C.D. Lamb has been awesome. But, like, even at that point, right, you're talking about 3 guys. Even if you throw Justin Jefferson in, who's been put on IR, so obviously isn't going to have the stats, but we know what he's able to do.
Yeah, for sure.
How can you argue him out of the top 5, right? More catches, yards, and touchdowns than Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know how you could make any argument that he's not that this season. Talking about the future, that's a different conversation. Right now, Keenan Allen is a bona fide top 5 receiver, 275-plus yard games already for him this season. Yeah. But he is hurt now, right? And Brandon Staley, we did get a little bit of an update on his injury today, saying he's day-to-day. And I put a post out saying, hey, this is great to see that it's not a serious injury. And as Charger fans, I think rightfully went into my comments and said, Brandon Staley's saying that, so we don't necessarily know if it's true, right? Like that day-to-day could mean something. Like I feel like if it was a severe sprain, if he tore his labrum or something like that, I don't think Brandon Staley's saying it's day-to-day. But
No.
David, this is the buy or sell. Since it's buy or sell day-to-day, this Chargers offense can survive without Keenan Allen.
No, not at all. I'm sorry. I have to sell that 100% because it's just so apparent how much of an impact Keenan Allen has on the offense. I mean, it was encouraging to see them get Jalen Guyton and Quentin Johnston involved and in the end zone. That was great. But Keenan Allen's been a one-man wrecking crew. Keenan Allen has 895 receiving yards. You know who is next in active players? It's Austin Eckler with 235 receiving yards.
That's insane.
Obviously, you have Mike Williams and you have Josh Palmer that are ahead of him, but both of them are on IR at the current moment. So that's how big of the discrepancy is, how big the target share difference is, the production difference. Keenan Allen has been a just gigantic part of this offense. You take him out of it, then you can really kind of double, or you don't even have to double anybody. It's just hard to find anybody else that's, be getting open and making plays on a consistent basis, not named Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I mean, long-term wise, it's not going to work, right? You have to sell that. He's been the most consistent part, including Justin Herbert on this offense all season. And not only has he shown he's crucial to this year's offense, I think he's shown that he has to be part of the 2024 offense as well. But when you're talking about this season, when you're already down Joshua Palmer and Mike Williams, wide receivers 2 and 3, if you lose Keenan Allen, man, like even for this upcoming game, I would, like it would be hard for me to say that's not going to majorly impact what I think about this game, because if not, like you're entering Legadoo non-A territory if Keenan Allen misses this upcoming game. You're talking about your top 3 receivers being Quentin Johnston, Jalen Guyton, and Simi Fehoko.
Seiji Ijaradutu.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Quentin Johnston obviously drafted number 1, but I think we all know, he's not ready to be wide receiver 1 or probably even wide receiver 2 at this point, even with an encouraging game.
Yeah.
I don't know how they could survive it, man. He's been, the catalyst of this offense, whatever word you want to say for it. That used to be David's favorite word to say on the show, but he has been.
Got to diversify, right? Dan.
Yeah, no, he has been that so far this season. So
no doubt about
day to day right now, I have to think with where the Chargers are at 4 and 5, tied for last place in the AFC West right now. If the Broncos and somehow have better wins of the Chargers against the Chiefs and the Bills now, which is insane. There's no room for error. There's no holding guys for later on. Like if he can play, especially since it's not like a leg or knee or an ankle or foot or anything like that, you have to think he's going to be out there and have to just try his best not to land on it, not to do anything awkward that could, potentially aggravate him more. But I think if he has any chance to play, they have to put him out there. But let's get into this buy or sell here before we wrap this segment up. We talked about Quentin Johnston. He had his first career touchdown on Sunday. The buy or sell is this. Quentin Johnston will get to 5 touchdowns this season.
Yeah, that one's very ambitious. And
he's already passed Mike Williams for season. So.
Exactly. Which a lot of people love to write Quentin Johnston off, just like they wrote Mike Williams off in his rookie year, and look what Mike Williams has done with his career since. I think the chemistry is definitely starting to develop. 15 targets for 64 yards through the first 6 games, 13 targets for 98 yards, and a touchdown through the last 3 games. So more targets, more opportunities, more production for Quentin Johnston. I just don't know if we're going to be able to get to 5 touchdowns, so I am going to sell it. I'm encouraged, at least lately, by what he has done and, being able to make plays, especially, when Justin's having to scramble and extend plays. Seems like Quentin's been able to make himself available and make some good catches. I just don't know if they're going to be able to find that rhythm enough to be able to get him in the end zone 5 times.
Yeah, man, I think there's going to be a time this year where we saw it almost happen in this game where he's going to catch a slant and he's taking it 60, 70 yards to the house.
Oh, yeah, I firmly believe
it feels
that.
like we're going to see that at some point this season, especially presser situation, no safety help over the top. He makes one man miss and he's gone. It feels like that's going to happen. The problem for me is the one touchdown and the first touchdown he got, he was schemed wide open, right? And that's kind of what it has taken for him to get into the end zone. He hasn't been particularly close on many of his end zone targets. A couple of one-handed attempts that he has, a couple of really tight throwing windows. But 5 is a lot, man, especially, 1 in the first 9 games. Obviously, he's in a much bigger role now. Can he get 4 in the next 8 games? Who else are they going to throw it to, right? I mean, I think you put him probably 5th in the pecking order behind, Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett, Donald Barham, Austin Eckler, then Quentin Johnston. Even with who they're missing, he might be 5 on like the red zone pecking order. So
yeah,
I think a lot of it's going to be, hey, give him something short of the end zone and let him try to break his way into it or bust his way in, right? And that should be what they're trying to do instead of throwing him fade routes. So if they use him better, I think there's a chance he gets it. It's just hard to see it right now with his current role, what he's doing. Hey, if Keenan Allen misses, maybe he gets 5 red zone targets this week. Who knows? But as of right now, I don't necessarily see it. But I do have more buy or sells to get into. So coming up after this, we're going to be getting into, are Derwin James and Alohi Gilman really a good fit together in this Chargers secondary? Because Alohi Gilman had a rough game after a couple of great games. Derwin James playing a little bit better, but it feels like both of them are box safeties, man. We're going to get into that coming up after this. I do want to tell you guys about FanDuel, though, because you can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. You just get to pick the game. You can pick the biggest favorite on the card. If you win that bet, you get $150 in those bonus bets. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. To me, what always sets them apart is the promotions they have going on. Right now, you can go on Thursday Night Football, Bengals and Ravens, and you can claim a profit boost token that will give you a 30% profit boost on a live wager that you place during that game, not just for new customers, but for new and returning customers. And as of right now, the game that David's going to at Lambeau on Sunday, the Chargers are a 3-point favorite. I wonder if that line moves if Keenan Allen can't go for it, because my personal line would move. Let's see if the Chargers can cover that spread. The over-under is 43.5. But any of your bets you're trying to get them in with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, David, let's get into the rest of these buy or sell here. There's a lot I want to get into, and we have some good ones, including talking about Derwin James, because obviously the Chargers secondary has not played up to par, not done what we've hoped they could do. And Derwin James, has been really known for his personal foul penalties more than for making big plays on this defense so far this year. So we're going to get into that. But I do need to tell you guys to make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL Kickoff Live, going on every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with hosts Tanisha Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs. And they're going to get into every single matchup on the NFL slate that weekend and get insight from all of the local experts the only way that Locked On can. So make sure you guys are checking that out every Friday on every Locked On NFL channel, the Locked On NFL Kickoff Live show at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Friday. David, let's get to the next buy or sell here, one that I thought of late tonight as we were coming up with this show. And something that I think is kind of apparent, and it's the fit between Derwin James and Alohi Gilman. It's a little different when you run a ton of cover 2, right? But the Chargers do vary away from that and have guys in safeties specifically covering half of the field in their defense, especially when the pattern match zone. You usually have 2 deep defenders on one side and one kind of, quarter, half. So one side has 2 people covering the deep part, the other side has 1. This is the buy or sell here today, David. Derwin James and Alohi Gilman are both better suited as box safeties.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I think that they have very similar play styles. I think they're both physical players. I think they're big hitters. I feel like they play with pretty good timing. But I think it's just very apparent that they do their best work around the line of scrimmage. Being able to defeat blocks, being able to impose their will a little bit. I think, back deep, I think Derwin's a little bit more comfortable in coverage. I think so. With Alohi, especially in the last game, I mean, it was bad in coverage. I mean, he got picked on. 5 receptions on 6 targets, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns given up. I mean, it's definitely one of those situations to where it's kind of, water and water. I mean, there's not really any compliment there. It's not peanut butter and jelly in this situation. And I think they've been trying to find that right balance, that right mix with Derwin. And I don't think that Alohi is really that correct right dancing partner for him.
Well, and that's why they drafted J.T. Woods, right? Like, that's exactly what it was supposed to be. That's why they drafted Nazir Adderley originally when it was still Gus Bradley's defense. And that's the defense that Derwin James was, drafted to play in, right? Cover 3 defense where he could be that middle of the field zone defender that he could come up and make big hits in the box, and he could also kind of take away those intermediate passes. And I think when you're looking at where they have both made their biggest impact in coverage, It's been coming up on intermediate throws. It's been going up on things in front of them. When is the last time you can remember that either one of these two guys was making a play on a deep ball 25-plus yards down the field?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't remember it. I know Dean Marlowe played back there when both of those guys were missing, and I remember 2 plays from that game that he got back there and was making a play on a deep ball and helping break up a deep ball, right? These guys aren't making plays in the deep part of the field. I mean, PFF is crediting Alohi Gilman for the first big play in the first half, huge play running across the field wide open, right, where Derwin James kind of looked like he might have had the other deep half, and he kind of ran into his zone. Hard to say, not knowing exactly what the coverage was there.
Yeah.
But he's also taking the heat for that 25-yard touchdown, the 3rd and 1, where everybody bit on the run, and they let a wide-open tight end get into the end zone on a nicely floated ball from Jared Goff. So, yeah, I don't think these guys have the skill set. I think both of them are better when they're playing kind of that robber defense, and they can be, up there for the crossing routes and the deep in routes and things like that they can break on in front of them. Neither one of them has really excelled as far as covering field, right, and being able to break up passes deep down the field. So, speaking of coverage, the linebackers for the Chargers got absolutely picked on in this game in coverage. It was basically Alohi Gilman and the Chargers linebackers that gave up, get this, 2/3 of Jared Goff's passing yards came from either targeting the Chargers 2 linebackers or Alohi Gilman. That's how bad it was from those guys. So to buy or sell is this, David. It's time to see what Daiyan Henley can do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a buy for me. I've been wanting to see Daiyan Henley since they drafted Daiyan Henley. I was never somebody who was, this guy's got to earn his stripes on special teams. I saw the ability right away. I mean, it seemed like he was a lot more, natural in coverage. Felt like he had really good instincts. I mean, he was another former safety. So, he's a guy that, just really feels like his skill set would lend itself to what the Chargers are struggling with and with what Eric Kendricks has struggled with specifically. Eric Kendricks' last 3 games in coverage, 6 receptions on 6 targets, 5 receptions on 7 targets, and 6 receptions on 7 targets allowed. I mean, that's just not good enough. I mean, that's a reception percentage of over 90% allowed. Like, that's a big, giant red target that, opposing quarterbacks are like, where's Eric Kendricks in coverage? All right, there it is. Let me target him. So the Chargers need to find a better balance. They have a rookie that has some clear talent, and I feel like they would be remiss in doing themselves a disservice if they did not give him an opportunity to see if he can impact that metric in a positive way.
And I don't think we're going to. I think that's the bummer here because Nick Niemann is the next guy on the field. Right. Nick Niemann's who took the snaps when Eric Kendricks missed games. But on obvious passing downs, why not get this dude in there? I mean, even Nick Niemann, if you think of Nick Niemann, his best play of the season, breaking up a pass against TJ Hawkinson where he glued himself to him in a big moment and caused an interception. Right? We're just not seeing enough plays, positive impact plays from these Chargers linebacker on passing plays, right? They have 4 pass breakups on the season, 3 for Eric Kendricks and 1 for Kenneth Murray through 9 games. And Eric Kendricks missed a couple of games, but it's just not enough. Kenneth Murray, if you want him to just cover the flat, he can do that in an outstanding fashion. You saw it on back-to-back, 2 times in 3 plays. It was perfectly kind of symbolized in that game because when the Detroit Lions were, going for that field goal at the end of the game, first thing, they target Eric Kendricks, right away, play action, 41-yard pass with him, chasing a guy down the sideline 20 yards behind him, right? That was awful. But Kenneth Murray makes a big play, pushes them out of field goal range, shoots on a play in the flats, and gets a tackle for loss, right? That really that put them in 3rd and 15, right? That was a huge play by Kenneth Murray. Then they gave up 13 on 3rd and 15, which drove me nuts. But then on 4th and 2, Kenneth Murray has a tight end, right? The pressure has to get home there, and that was the biggest part of that, right? But Kenneth Murray's in a hook zone. Tight end crosses his face, so Jared Goff doesn't go to him because Kenneth Murray's in a good spot at the beginning of it. But the problem is Kenneth Murray just stays planted there. It's 4th down, man. Plaster yourself to that dude, right? When things are getting, going a little bit too long, you have to know, hey, I better cover somebody. This guy in front of me is not going to catch that ball. Instead, he tries to hand him off. The flat defender's too far away to make a play, and the rest is history. But I do think, hey, get Daiyan Henley out there. We're almost to the point where, hey, it's let's see some of these young guys. Dean Leonard is a young guy Dean Leonard was probably the best Chargers corner on Sunday. In coverage, he definitely was. Yeah, right.
Beautiful pass breakup. It was excellent.
And they tried to target him early and realized, okay,
he ain't the one.
Let's go back to targeting Kenneth Murray and Eric Kendricks, right? That happened really quick. They targeted him back-to-back plays.
You're like, all right, we're done with that.
That would have been an Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown in that game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I'm excited by that. He was bad in run defense, right? And we'll see if that part can get better. But coming in for Michael Davis, he was awesome. So maybe it's time to start seeing some of these young guys. But that's going to do it for us on today's show. If there's any young guys you want us to talk about, you can tell us tomorrow because it is Chargers mailbag day after, you know, Monday Night Football last week. Excited to give the shows back to you guys this week. Call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 if you want to get your 30-second Chargers voicemail in there. Or hit us up at LockedOnLAC on Twitter if you want to ask us what your question is. We'll put a post out. You can hit me up at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at Dro Talk SD as well. If you want to hit us up on Instagram, you can do that at Locked On Chargers or even on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We want you guys to ask us the questions you guys want us to talk about at this point in the season at 4-5. Some big games coming up. So let us know what you guys are thinking, but we will be back with you guys tomorrow. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.